The bouquet of white lilies felt heavy in my hands as I pushed through the automatic doors of St. Michael's Hospital at 2:17 a.m. My scrubs were still crisp. I'd just started my shift, but I'd stopped by the hospital's 24-hour flower shop on the way up. Room 12, Mrs. Patterson, the sweet elderly lady who reminded me of my grandmother, had made it through a risky surgery that evening. I wanted her to wake up to something beautiful. My name is Daniel Reed, and I'm a critical care nurse in the ICU. 3 years on the night shift had taught me that small gestures matter. In a place where people fight for every breath, where families say goodbye, where the fluorescent lights wash out every bit of color from the world, flowers, a kind word, a gentle touch, these things matter more than any medicine. The ICU hallway was quiet except for the rhythmic symphony of monitors and ventilators. I nodded to Sarah, the nurse at the station, and headed toward room 12. I was thinking about Mrs. Patterson's smile, about how she'd probably cry happy tears, about how her daughter would be there in the morning to see them. I pushed open the door to room 12, already forming the words I'd whisper so as not to startle her. But the person in that bed wasn't Mrs. Patterson. I froze. A young woman lay there, her face pale as the sheets, tubes and wires connecting her to machines that beeped urgently. Her auburn hair was matted with dried blood on one side, and even in the dim light, I could see bruises blooming across her exposed shoulder. An oxygen mask covered half her face, fogging with each shallow breath. My heart hammered. This wasn't right. Where was Mrs. Patterson? I stepped closer, the flowers suddenly feeling absurd in my hands. The patient's chart hung at the foot of the bed. Emily Watson, 26 years old. Motor vehicle accident. Admitted tonight. Critical condition. Oh God, I whispered. That's when her eyes opened. Just barely, just slits. But they found me through the dimness. Brilliant green, glazed with pain and medication, but aware. Aware enough to see me standing there like an idiot, with a bouquet of flowers in the middle of the night. Her cracked lips moved behind the oxygen mask. I couldn't hear the words, but I could read them. Are those for me? My brain stuttered. This was so far outside protocol, I didn't even know where to begin. But something in those eyes, something vulnerable and scared and trying so hard to be brave, made me step forward instead of backing out. Yeah, I heard myself say, my voice soft. Yeah, they are. The tiniest smile touched her eyes. Then they fluttered closed again. I stood there for a full 30 seconds, heart racing, before I carefully backed out of the room. In the hallway, I pressed my back against the wall, the flowers still clutched in my hand. Daniel? Sarah called from the nurse's station. You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. What happened to Mrs. Patterson? I managed. Oh, she got moved to room 14 this afternoon. Doing great, by the way. Room 12 is the new trauma admit from tonight. Terrible accident. She coded twice in the ambulance. Sarah's expression softened. Dr. Harrison wants you on her case, actually. He said you're the best we've got for critical patients. I looked down at the lilies in my hand, then back at the door to room 12. I'll take her, I said. I left the flowers on the windowsill in Emily's room after. I delivered Mrs. Patterson's bouquet. I told myself it was because the girl had seen them, had smiled, and maybe, just maybe, that small moment of unexpected kindness mattered. But I knew it was more than that. Over the next week, I became obsessed with Emily, Watson's recovery in a way that wasn't entirely professional. I volunteered for every shift that covered her care. I studied her charts like they held secrets. I monitored every fluctuation in her vitals with an intensity that made my colleagues raise eyebrows. You're hovering, Margaret, my charge nurse told me on day 4. She was a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who'd seen everything. I've watched you work for 3 years, Daniel. You're good with all your patients. But this is different. She's critical, I said defensively. She needs a good nurse, which you are, but maybe check your motivations here. Her voice wasn't unkind, just careful. It's easy to lose objectivity. I wanted to argue, but she was right. And I didn't know how to explain that when I'd walked into that wrong room with those flowers. Something had shifted in the universe. Some door had opened that I couldn't close. Emily drifted in and out of consciousness. Her family came, her parents Robert and Linda, her younger brother Michael. They were destroyed, these good people watching their daughter fight for her life. Linda held Emily's hand for hours, whispering prayers. Robert paced like a caged animal, helpless rage at the drunk driver who T-boned. His daughter's car written all over his face. She was coming home from a parent-teacher conference. Linda told me through tears on day 5. She's a teacher, English, 10th grade. She loves those kids so much. She stayed late to talk to a struggling student's mother. She was doing something good and then her voice broke. I put a hand on her shoulder. She's fighting. She's strong. I can see it. Thank you for the flowers, Linda said suddenly, looking at the wilting lilies on the windowsill. When I first got here that night and saw them, I thought someone had made a mistake, that they were funeral flowers. But the nurse told me you'd brought them, that Emily had seen them and smiled. That was the first time anyone told me she'd done anything that looked like living. My throat tightened. She's a fighter, Mrs. Watson. On day 8, Emily crashed. I was on break, eating a terrible sandwich in the cafeteria, when my pager went off. Room 12, code blue. I ran. I'd never run so fast in my life. The room was chaos, Dr. Harrison doing compressions, nurses pushing medications, the defibrillator charging, that horrible flat-line tone that every medical professional dreads. Daniel, take over compressions, Dr. Harrison ordered, and I did. My hands on Emily's chest, feeling her ribs flex under my palms. Come on, I muttered with each compression. Come on, Emily, not like this. Stay, stay. Charge, clear, shock. Nothing. Charge, clear, shock. A beep, then another, then a rhythm. We got her, Dr. Harrison said, but his face was grim. But her brain activity is decreasing. The next 24 hours will tell us if there's permanent damage. I stayed in that room all night, even after my shift ended. I held her hand, careful of the IV, and I talked to her. I told her about the flowers, about how I'd walked into the wrong room. I told her about Mrs. Patterson, who was recovering beautifully. I told her about my life, growing up in a small town in Ohio, losing my mom to cancer when I was 19, how it had made me want to help people fight death the way she'd fought. I told her stupid stories about my dog, about my terrible apartment, about the guitar I couldn't play collecting dust in my closet. You can't leave yet, I whispered as dawn broke through the window. I know that's selfish. I know I'm just the nurse who brought flowers to the wrong room. But Emily, I need you to stay. The world needs you to stay. Those students need you. Your family needs you. I paused, swallowing hard. And maybe I need you to stay too. Her fingers twitched in mine. Emily woke up on day 9. I wasn't there. I'd finally gone home to sleep. But when I came in for my next shift, Margaret met me with actual tears in her eyes. She's awake, she said. And Daniel? She asked for you, by name. My heart stopped. How does she know my name? Margaret smiled. Apparently she's been hearing everything. She said, where's Daniel? The one who talks too much and brought me flowers for the wrong reason. I practically ran to room 12. Emily was propped up slightly, the oxygen mask replaced with a nasal cannula. She looked tiny in that bed, bruised and broken, but her eyes were clear. So incredibly clear. And they locked onto me the moment I walked in. Wrong room, she whispered, her voice raspy from the intubation. You walked into the wrong room. I moved to her bedside, suddenly shy. Yeah, I did. Best mistake ever made, she said, and smiled. A real smile, though it clearly hurt. How are you feeling? I asked, falling into professional mode because I didn't know what else to do. Like I got hit by a car, she said. Oh wait, I did. She tried to laugh, then winced. Ow, note to self, no laughing. Emily. You talk to me, she interrupted, her eyes never leaving mine. Every night. I heard you, Daniel. When I was in the dark place, I heard your voice. You kept pulling me back. My vision blurred. You scared us. You scared me. I scared myself, she admitted. But I wasn't alone. You were there. Even when I couldn't respond, couldn't open my eyes, couldn't fight, you were there, telling me to stay. So you did, I whispered. So I did. The recovery was long and painful. Emily had broken ribs, a fractured pelvis, a severe concussion, and internal injuries that had required 2 surgeries. Physical therapy was agony. There were setbacks, infections, bad pain days, moments where she broke down crying from frustration. But she fought, and I was there for all of it, well beyond what any nurse should be. I came in on my days off. I stayed late after shifts. I helped with her physical therapy, encouraging her through each painful step. We talked for hours about books. She was obsessed with Jane Austen. About movies, about life and death and everything in between. "Why did you become a nurse?" She asked me one night about 3 weeks in. She was doing better, able to sit up for longer periods, her bruises fading from purple to yellow-green. "My mom," I said. "She had cancer. Stage 4 breast cancer when I was 17. The nurses at her hospice, they were angels. They made her last months bearable, dignified. They cared about her as a person, not just a patient. I wanted to be that for people." Emily's hand found mine on the bed rail. "She'd be proud of you." "I hope so." "I know so. You saved my life, Daniel. Not just the medical stuff. You gave me a reason to fight. Those flowers, your voice, your stories, your terrible jokes, they mattered. You mattered." I looked at our hands, intertwined now like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Emily," I started, then stopped. "This is probably inappropriate. You're my patient. There are rules and ethics and—" "I'm being discharged next week," she interrupted quietly. "Then I won't be your patient anymore." Our eyes met. "Would you maybe want to get coffee?" I asked. "Or tea, since you hate coffee." She laughed, that full, beautiful laugh that I'd worked so hard to hear. "I thought you'd never ask." But the universe wasn't done testing us yet. The complication hit on day 37. Just 3 days before her scheduled discharge. I was at home, actually sleeping for once, when my phone rang at 4 a.m. Margaret's voice was tight with controlled panic. "Daniel, you need to come in. It's Emily. She's bleeding internally again. They think a surgical repair failed. She's going into emergency surgery right now, but it's bad. Really bad." I made it to the hospital in 12 minutes. I should be ashamed of how I drove, but I'm not. Emily's family was already there, clustered in the surgical waiting area. Linda looked like she'd aged 10 years. When she saw me, she stood up and wrapped her arms around me. "She asked for you," she sobbed into my shoulder. Right before they took her back, she said, "Tell Daniel I'm still fighting. Tell him to wait for me." 6 hours. The surgery took 6 hours. I paced. I prayed, even though I wasn't sure who I was praying to. I made bargains with God, the universe, fate, whatever would listen. Take anything from me, just let her live. Let her have the life she deserves. Let her teach her students, travel to Ireland, pet her dog, laugh at terrible jokes. Let her live, and I'll never ask for anything again. Dr. Harrison finally emerged at 11:47 a.m. He looked exhausted, but when he saw me, he smiled. "She's going to make it," he said. "It was close, closer than I'd like. But she's stable. She's in recovery now." I actually fell into a chair, my legs giving out. "Can I see her?" I asked. "You're not family," Dr. Harrison said, then paused. "But I have a feeling you will be someday. Go ahead." Emily looked so small and pale in that recovery room bed, hooked back up to machines, tubes, wires. We'd come full circle, but her eyes were open. And when she saw me, she smiled. "You waited," she whispered. I took her hand, lifted it to my lips, kissed her knuckles gently. "Always. I'll always wait for you, Emily Watson." "That's good," she murmured, her voice thick with medication. "Because I'm going to marry you someday, Daniel Reed." I laughed through tears. "Is that a proposal?" "Maybe, or a prophecy. Too tired to decide." "Rest," I told her. "I'll be here when you wake up." "Promise?" "Promise." 3 years later, I stood in the hospital chapel, my hands shaking as I adjusted my tie. Through the door, I could hear soft music playing, Ed Sheeran's Thinking Out Loud. Emily's choice. "You nervous?" Michael, Emily's brother and my best man, asked with a grin. "Terrified," I admitted. "What if I mess up my vows?" "You've literally saved her life multiple times. I think she'll forgive you if you stumble over some words." The music changed, the wedding march. My heart kicked into overdrive. The doors opened, and there she was. Emily walked down the aisle, no wheelchair, no limp, completely healed, in a simple, elegant white dress. Her auburn hair was swept up, her green eyes bright with happy tears. She was radiant, alive, mine. When she reached me, she handed her bouquet to her maid of honor and took my hands. "Hi," she whispered. "Hi," I whispered back. "Still waiting for me?" "Always." The ceremony was simple, intimate. Just family and close friends in the same hospital where we'd met, where we'd fought together, where our story had begun in the most unexpected way. When it came time for vows, Emily went first. "Daniel," she said, her voice steady despite the tears on her cheeks. 3 years ago, you walked into the wrong room carrying flowers meant for someone else. You had no idea that the broken girl in that bed would become your whole world. But you stayed. When I was drowning in darkness, you were the voice that pulled me back. When I wanted to give up, you gave me reasons to fight. You saw me at my absolute worst, broken, scared, barely human. And you chose to love me anyway. You saved my life in every way a person can be saved. I promise to spend the rest of my life being worthy of that gift. I promise to stay always. I promise to be your wrong room that became the right everything. I couldn't speak for a moment. The chapel was silent except for the sound of people crying, myself included. Then I cleared my throat and began. "Emily, I was supposed to bring flowers to Mrs. Patterson that night. I was supposed to walk into room 14. But I walked into room 12 instead, and I found you. Sometimes I wonder if it was really a mistake, or if the universe just knew that I needed you before I did. You came into my life at 2:17 a.m. on a Tuesday, and you changed everything. You taught me that love isn't always gentle. Sometimes it's bloody and painful and scary. Sometimes it's fighting together in the darkness and refusing to let go. You asked me once why I became a nurse. I said it was because of my mom. But now I know the real reason. It was to be in that hallway, at that moment with those flowers, so I could walk into the wrong room and find the right person. I promised to never stop fighting for us. I promised to bring you flowers for no reason. I promised to make terrible jokes that make you laugh even when it hurts. And I promised to love you with everything I have for all the days of my life. I now pronounce you husband and wife," the chaplain said, his own voice thick with emotion. "You may kiss your bride." I cupped Emily's face in my hands and kissed her, and the chapel erupted in applause and cheers. We walked back down that aisle together, hand in hand. Past the nurse's station where I'd first panicked over the wrong room, past the ICU where we'd spent so many long nights, past the recovery rooms and the waiting areas, and all the places where we'd learned what it meant to fight for life and love. At the exit, I stopped and turned to face my wife. "Ready to start our life together?" I asked. She smiled up at me, that beautiful, bright smile that I'd fought so hard to see. "I've been ready since the moment a confused nurse walked into my room with flowers at. That's why I am." "Best mistake I ever made," I said. "Best mistake we both made," she corrected. "A message to you. Life doesn't always make sense in the moment. Sometimes the wrong turn leads to the right destination. Sometimes getting lost is how you find your way home. Sometimes the worst night of your life is the beginning of your greatest love story. We started in a place of darkness, pain, and fear. But we chose to fight. We chose to hold on. We chose each other every single day, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. If you're in your own ICU right now, whether it's a hospital room, a broken heart, a lost dream, or a dark place you can't see your way out of, please know this. There's someone coming. Maybe they'll walk in at 2 a.m. with flowers meant for someone else. Maybe they'll hold your hand through the worst of it. Maybe they'll give you a reason to stay. But they're coming. So stay. Fight. Wait for your wrong room to become your right everything. We promise it's worth it. With all our love, Daniel and Emily Reed. P.S. We still keep white lilies in our house, always. They remind us that the most beautiful things in life often come from the most unexpected mistakes.